Yeah, just feel free to, once I get into the presentation, just feel free to stop me, raise your virtual hand, and I'll try to answer your question as best I can. But thank you all for having me on today. My name's Andy Hoekenga, and I'm a 2011 graduate of Troy University. I went to the main campus and got my business degree there, concentrated in human resource management, and started off working with Coleman Worldwide Moving, which is a moving and storage company. Spent about 8 years there in that industry, and did a little bit of everything. Focused pretty heavily on recruiting because I worked out of our corporate office, which is in Midland City. And then 2 months ago, I was offered an opportunity with Larry Bloomberg and Associates, which is a hotel management company. So I'm in the HR department here now, kind of focusing on training and compliance. But I just kind of want to take some of the things I learned in 8 years of doing some of the recruiting and share that advice with y'all, and hopefully that will help y'all as you prepare to do a job search of your own. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Let's see, I've got a question. Does LBA have any full-time positions available? Not right now that I know of. My second day on the job was when everything with COVID kind of shut everything down. So there's not been a whole lot of hiring, at least in the Dothan area. Some of our hotels are looking for like managers. There's some management positions at some of our hotels. If I recall correctly, I think in the Birmingham area, we have some openings there. So if you check out lbahospitality.com, all of our openings should be on there. I'll go ahead and share my screen. What I'm going to be talking about today is resume development and job interview skills. So we'll just go right on into that. And you know, the main question is, why are good interviewing skills in a professional resume important? And I want to bring up 5 numbers that I hope will really kind of stick with you to make you see why that's the case. The first number is the number 6. And this one really kind of surprised me myself, but 6 seconds is the average number, is the average amount of time that a recruiter will spend looking at a resume. This is actually according to a survey or a study that was done by the Ladders, which is a executive job search company. They actually used eye tracking technology to watch recruiters' eyes as they were looking at resumes, and found that they spent on average 6 seconds looking at a resume before moving on to the next one. And the main things they looked at during that 6 seconds was, one, if you're job hopping, so going from one job to another every couple of years, if you met the minimum education requirement, and then also they wanted to see a history of career progression. The next number is 77. So a career builder study from 2018 actually showed that 77% of hiring managers will disqualify a resume because of typos or bad grammar. So just another reason as to why a professional, proofread resume is really critical. Third number is 90. So according to a undercover recruiter, 33% of managers know within the first 90 seconds during the first 90 seconds of an interview whether or not they want to hire someone. So again, first impressions, very critical when you're going in for that first interview. And lastly, the number 9. So according to Moody's Analytics, the predicted unemployment rate by the end of the year is going to be 9%, which is about the same as it was during the 2011, around 2010 or 2011, after the 2008-2009 recession. So again, the paradigm has shifted pretty dramatically. When I first put this presentation together back in October, as of February, the unemployment rate was 3.5%. And now it's gotten a lot more competitive for job seekers, for people just getting out of college. So again, hopefully some of this information will be helpful as you start looking for that first job. So surely you're asking yourself, how can my brilliance ever be captured on a one-page resume? Well, we'll get right into that. First thing you want to look at, there's really 2 main types of resumes, and you want to look at chronological versus functional. A chronological resume is going to be more of your standard resume format. It highlights the career progression, and it's really best for those who want to stay in the same field, or if you have a stable work history. Today, we're really going to focus more on the functional resume because it allows you to highlight your skills and achievements. And it's best for recent college graduates, or maybe if you're looking into getting into a different field, or maybe you've been working for a while, but you've just got a really broad experience in different industries. This helps you highlight your skills and abilities that you've kind of gleaned from all those different jobs. So where do we want to start? The first thing is get rid of a cover letter. I really only recommend that when it's required, and this is going back to that 6-second rule. You want the recruiter to see, your resume. So really, if you have to use a cover letter, if you're applying online and the software requires it, or maybe it's a job posting, you're emailing it in and they still require a cover letter, then I recommend using one. But you can just use that to kind of clarify and highlight your prior experience more, and state why that's relevant to this current position you're trying to get into, and also why you want to work for that employer. And next, you want to start off with a professional summary instead of an objective. The professional summary, it could be a professional, some people may call it a professional profile, a summary of qualifications, but ultimately it's going to be an elevator pitch, so to speak. It's going to be at the top of your resume and helps catch the recruiter's eye. It's just going to be a high-level summary of your skills, your achievements, some of your qualities, and you can go into further detail on those achievements during the achievement section of your actual resume. And so next thing, unless you're in graphic design, just keep it simple. Again, according to the Undercover Recruiter study that I referenced earlier, over 40% of recruiters will pass on a resume because it's over-designed. So if you're a graphic design major or maybe a marketing major and you're trying to get into a career field where some creativity is kind of required, then you may want to go that route. But if it's just a regular job opening, just minimalist design, a little bit of color to help your resume pop and stand out, but try not to go overboard. And one page coming out of college, that should really be your maximum page count for now. Again, going back to 6 seconds, you want to try to put as much information as you can in front of that recruiter or hiring manager. And when it comes to building your resume, we're going to go over 5 basic sections. This one seems kind of obvious, but you would be surprised at how many people can miss it. Start with your name and your contact information, and then also a URL to your LinkedIn account as well. Next, we'll have the professional profile, the summary of qualifications. And this is just an example that I kind of put together. A recent Troy graduate with proven experience as a leader, strong interpersonal and analytical skills combined with a willingness to take initiative. So that's going to be an example of kind of your professional profile. And when you're putting that together, you want to avoid cliches: good listener, hard worker, team player. Those are just kind of overdone, and the recruiter will see that a lot. And when I mentioned an objective earlier, just so you can kind of see the difference, this is an example of what an objective might be versus a summary of qualifications. An objective would be to obtain a position that allows me to use my accounting degree and analytical skills and to pursue my CPA license. So, everyone ultimately has an objective. The objective is you want to get the job, but now you can kind of compare the objective versus the summary of qualifications and kind of see what you think sound better. Next, you want to go over your education. You can include your high school information if you want to, but you definitely want to be sure to include, your college information, anywhere you might have gone before Troy, what your major was, and you can also include your GPA and then any relevant coursework. And the coursework doesn't even have to be related to your major. If it was an elective you took that you feel may help strengthen some of your qualifications, by all means include that. And as far as the GPA, really everyone has a different college experience. So if you don't feel like your GPA is a strength, I would just leave it off. They may ask about it during the interview, but that would be your opportunity to explain maybe why your GPA wasn't where you'd like it to be. So if it's below 3.0, I would just go ahead and leave your GPA off. Next, include any professional experience you may have, a part-time job, any internships you've participated in. When you're putting that together, I definitely recommend using bullet points rather than a paragraph format to describe your job duties. I know me personally, when I was at Coleman and looking at resumes, I had specific, duties that I was looking for that people might have performed, because I know that they will line up with the position we were trying to fill. And trying to dig through a paragraph versus looking at bullet points, I was much more likely to, pass on a resume with a paragraph more quickly than the bullet points. It's much easier on the eyes. And before you submit your resume, go back and look at the job posting or the job description and use some of the buzzwords from that and put those in your resume, kind of tailor your resume to the job description. A lot of companies will use artificial intelligence to parse out these resumes and try to find the best resumes that best line up with the job postings. And finally, include any extracurricular activities. It could be on campus, it could be off campus if you're involved with your church or a local Rotary Club or any other local nonprofit. You can include that there and just kind of show how you've developed some additional skills. And just as a visual aid, here's an example of what a functional resume might look like. I just kind of threw this together. So this is the resume for Trojan Job Seeker. As you can see at the top, we've got the name and contact information and LinkedIn profile. Right below that, a professional summary. And this time I used soon to graduate Troy University student with strong initiative and demonstrated problem-solving skills. I financed my own education while maintaining a 3.4 GPA and provided leadership to multiple on-campus organizations. Directly below that, I've got education information, what my major was, and some related coursework. And then down at the bottom, I had the professional experience. So when I was at Troy, I actually worked at a car parts store. So I just, threw that on there. I just put 2 bullet points as the example, but you can obviously use more than that. And then throw in some additional extracurricular activities. And then the skills and abilities just kind of came with the template of that resume. So you can certainly, use that, or if you have some extra space, you can use that for something else that you feel may strengthen your resume. Just a few final tips for building your resume. Definitely be sure to use a professional email address. I know when I was at Troy, you were able to keep your troy.edu email for quite some time after you graduated. So your .edu email address is perfectly fine, or first name last name with a Gmail account, or first letter last name, anything with your name in it, because you want to keep, the more you can get your name in front of that recruiter's and keep it in that recruiter's mind, you'll stick in there a little bit more as they're considering candidates. You definitely don't want something that's going to be unprofessional that could turn the recruiter off. And just as an example, here's some of the actual email addresses that I've seen over the years. So soccer is the shiznit, big sexy 1957, big country boy. Those are fine if you want to communicate with your friends and family and everyone else, but I don't recommend, using that when you're trying to get a job. Personal accomplishments, I don't recommend including those unless they're related to the position. On the last slide, I had included one of the abilities on the example resume was that Trojan Job Seeker exceeded sales or fundraising goals for the fraternity he was in. So if you're applying for a sales position, that would be something that's great. But the example here, if you want a bodybuilding competition, that would be relevant if you're trying to be a personal trainer, but not for sales. Same thing with college athletes, going to a bowl game, playing in the College World Series. Those are great accomplishments, but not necessarily relevant to an accounting position, for example. When you save your resume, include your first and last name in the file name. Again, it's just a matter of making sure your name sticks with that recruiter so they remember your name as they're considering candidates after they've looked at everyone. And next, don't just double check, but triple check your resume for spelling and grammatical errors. And even after that, have someone check behind you. I think I may have some questions in the chat here. I'll pause real quickly and see.
We're talking about the Troy email addresses. So it sounds like you can use your regular Troy one for maybe 6 months to a year, but beyond that, you actually do get a free 1-year membership through the Alumni Association. And
gotcha.
if anybody knows, I think it might actually be a different email address. It might be like Troy Alum or not. I'm not sure. So if anybody knows, they can type it in.
Okay. Well, good to know. And yeah, but with the spelling and grammatical errors, you know, the last thing you want to do is go into a job interview and tell people that you're detail oriented and then have a glaring typo on your resume. And finally, here's my plug for Troy Career Services. They offer resume assistance. So if you're just not sure how to word something, or maybe you don't think something looks right, hit them up, and I know they can do a great job of helping you all out with formatting your resume. Now we'll move on to the interview portion, so you don't answer questions like this guy did. So here's some of the basics with a job interview. You've really got two main interview styles, structured and unstructured. With a structured interview, your questions are going to be predetermined, not a whole lot of variation from candidate to candidate. That really helps the hiring manager make it easier to quantify the candidates and compare them with different scores. Unstructured interviews, you'll have a few predetermined questions, but not a whole lot. It's really going to go more based on the flow of the interview. It's going to be more conversational. I know that me personally, if I'm interviewing someone, I prefer more of an unstructured interview just because it helps establish a rapport a little bit more easily. It sets the candidate at ease, and you can generally get a little bit more information from them versus just doing a structured interview. Next, you're going to have four main types of interviews. The first one is going to be, you know, your good classic one-on-one interview. That could be in person. It could be on the phone. These days, it could be a video chat. After that, we have a panel interview, speaking with multiple people from different areas of the organization. Having participated in panel interviews myself, I can tell you that it isn't something that companies do to try to scare you or intimidate you. It's just a great way to get kind of a holistic, 360-degree view from all areas of the organization, someone from HR, someone from accounting, someone from operations, because ultimately you want to find someone who's going to be the best fit in the organization, and panel interviews really help with that. Next, lunch or dinner interview. Just going to be an informal meeting over a meal, just like it sounds. I highly recommend, if it's a dinner interview or I guess lunch, don't, under any circumstances, order any alcoholic beverages. If the person interviewing you offers you one, then if you feel comfortable, then go for it. But even then, I would absolutely limit it to no more than one or two drinks, because you just don't want to, lose your edge and get sloppy, maybe say something you normally wouldn't. And finally, a group interview. This is where you're going to have one or two interviewers speaking with multiple candidates all at once. This allows for a quick screening. When I was at Coleman Worldwide Moving, our warehouse managers did that a lot when we were getting ready for our summer busy season, because we had to hire a large number of people at the same time. So those are very effective when you have to fill a lot of roles all at once. And obviously, proper attire matters. A survey actually found of 2,000 hiring managers that 50% of interviewers think a candidate can be eliminated just because of how they dress when they walk through the door. So, it's a safe bet. Just business professional, coat and tie for a guy, a pantsuit for ladies, or a blouse and skirt. I've had interviewers tell me, don't dress up too much. So in that case, I'll wear just a button down and some slacks. But unless they say otherwise, I highly recommend wearing business professional. And now this is an update for a post-COVID world, some best practices for online interviews. Make sure that you have a professional looking background. Here I'm in my office, so I've got, the shelf back there with some of my degrees and things. But you don't want to, have a collage of you and your friends, or a poster of your favorite band. Just a blank wall or a bookshelf, is kind of a safe bet. Or a lot of the video conference software now will allow you to blur your background if worst case scenario, blur your background. Next, you want to try to avoid background noise, pets, in the background. If you have any family members who are talking, you want to do as much as possible to avoid distractions. It may drown you out, and the interviewer can't hear what you're saying. So you just want to try not to leave a bad impression because of the background noise. Next, check for proper lighting. Like here in my office, I've got the one overhead light. You want to have as much light as possible shining towards your face and not coming from behind or from the side. I've got a window here, so I shut the blinds so I don't have the light coming in from the side there. And again, you just want to focus on having good lighting so the interviewer can see you. And next, dress the same as if it was in person. Normally, the camera is just from the chest up, but as I don't know how many of y'all saw this, but if you get your camera angle wrong, you can tell that you're not wearing pants. So definitely at least put on pants, because you just never know. This was a meteorologist for a local news station, and he kind of went viral because he went live and messed up his camera angle. So unless you have a camera guy helping you out, just wear pants. Now, a few crucial questions to answer. 99% of the time you're going to get asked most of these questions during the interview process. So you want to make sure that you're able to answer these questions. First, what's your greatest strength? This is going to be your chance to showcase what's the best about you and your best personality trait. Next, what's your greatest weakness? This can be one that really trips up people. I'm amazed at how many people are not prepared to answer this question when it's one of the classics. So you want to use something that can paint you in a good light and then end it on a positive note. So for example, when I interviewed for this job, they asked me that question, of course, and I said that, I can tend to kind of get hung up on trying to solve problems on my own and not ask other people for help if I have a question on something. But that I've learned that it's a better use of my time on a project if I find myself getting stuck to go to someone else and see if they can answer the question. Or you could say, I'm too critical of myself, but I've learned to celebrate small successes. Just something that, can still kind of make you look good. Next, why should we hire you? Definitely want to be able to answer that. This is going to be your chance to make yourself stand out from other candidates. And again, a good time to kind of keep that job description in the back of your mind and use that as the guide, because you can line up what you bring to the table versus what they have in the job posting and say, well, you say you're looking for someone with X experience. I have this, I feel like I'm a good fit for your organization. Second to last thing, why do you want to work for us? You definitely want to be able to cite specific reasons to show that you've done your research on the company. Don't just say something like, oh, well, I heard it's a great place to work, because everyone's going to say that. But you could say, I know that LBA is very active in the community here in Dothan, and that's really close to my heart. Or, that you've got a great reputation within the community. You support a certain charity, anything like that to show why you're interested in the company. And finally, when they ask you if you have any questions for them, the answer should be yes. Carry your notepad and your pen in there with you. Take notes as they're telling you about the position. You want to show that you're interested in the job. If you just say, no, I'm good, it definitely makes it appear. I mean, they may have answered all of your questions, but it at least makes it appear that you're less engaged. So, if at all possible, try to ask some kind of question to show that you've been engaged and paying attention. All right, and just a few final tips. Familiarize yourself with how to get there and plan on getting there, 5 to 10 minutes early. If you plan on getting there early, it's a lot more difficult to end up being late. You just never know what can happen with traffic. If there's a wreck, if you get, stuck behind a tractor, whatever. But you don't want to get there too early. The interviewer may be on a tight schedule. Maybe they're in a meeting right before the interview with you, and you don't want to get there 30 minutes early and then be stuck sitting in a lobby for, 25, 30 minutes. Second, this sounds kind of old school, but send a thank you card after the interview. If you get the interviewer's name and the address, definitely be sure to do that, because I can count on one hand how many people sent me a thank you card after an interview. So that helps you stand out, and it doesn't take that much extra time to do so afterwards. Next, do not lie, because you may not get caught the next day, you may not get caught the next month, but you will eventually get caught. People will try to lie about why they got fired from the previous job, but just be upfront about it. Explain what happened and why it won't happen again, and what you learned from that mistake. And you can have the truth on your side versus them finding out and then having to kind of go on the defensive. Next, and here's another Troy Career Services plug, go to mock interviews. Just like if you played sports or if you played a musical instrument, you can't perform your best if you're not prepared. So, for virtual interviews, you can go to troy.biginterview.com, and, on top of preparing on how to do an interview via video chat, they have plenty of great, questions to help you prepare just for interviews in general. And finally, make eye contact when you're talking to the interviewer. It may sound, like a little thing, but even if you feel nervous, it shows confidence. It helps you establish a rapport with the interviewer a lot better than if I was talking to you and just kind of looking down at the floor like this. I look a lot more confident looking into the camera here. And now as we wrap up, just a few more general tips. Try to speed along here because I know there may be some questions. Make sure all your contact information is current and that your outgoing voicemail sounds professional. You don't want to have like a song, your voicemail is just a song or some kind of crazy message. And you certainly don't want your phone number to no longer be valid, or your email box or your voicemail box not being set up, because you can't go to the interview if they can't leave you a voicemail. So make sure all of that is current and set up properly. And next, create a LinkedIn account. As you kind of network, as you get to know people, this is a great way to maintain those professional relationships. And networking really plays a big, it makes a big difference in the job search and getting jobs. So that's a good way to keep up with the people that you meet as you go out and get involved. And also be mindful of what you put on your personal social media, because I promise you that companies do look at your Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So you don't want your profile picture to be, you doing a keg stand down on Panama City Beach, when you're trying to get that first job out of college. Next, make sure that you are the one who calls about the status of your application. It actually happens. I don't want to talk to your mama or your daddy or your grandma about, if you're going to get the interview or why you didn't get a job. When I'm trying to hire someone, I want to hire someone that I know will do the job themselves and not rely on someone else to have those tough conversations. So you need to show the initiative, and you need to call and check on the status of your application. And next, or finally on this slide, get involved on campus. It's a great way to kind of get out of your shell, get out of your comfort zone. And again, it's about building those relationships, because you never know when someone you met through one of the on-campus organizations may help you, with the job down the road, or as you get into your career, that may be a great professional contact, one day, a few years down the road. So definitely get involved on campus. Personally, I was an introvert, pretty big time in college, but, I got involved in on-campus organizations, and it just helps you come out of your shell and get out of that comfort zone. And final tip before we wrap up, if you didn't take anything away from this, this is the one thing that I want you to walk away from. Don't get discouraged. When I graduated, May of 2011, 8.5%, 9% unemployment rate. I probably had 5 or 6 job interviews, looked for a job for 9 months before I finally got my job. So, you'll likely hear no a lot before you finally get a yes. But that job is out there for you. And hopefully some of this advice will help you as you, look for that first job out of college. But that's the main thing I want you to take away from all this. And I appreciate y'all's time. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any more. And that looks like we may have some coming in, actually. Let me go to the chat here. Sarah asked, if you have more bullet points that end up making your resume more than one page, what do you recommend? If it depends on how important you feel those bullet points are. If they're all equally important skills or duties that you had with your job or your internship, you could try to format it a little bit. It's okay if you go a little bit over one page, but just format it so you don't have 2 bullet points. Most of your resume is on one page and then 2 bullet points on the next page. And Sharika asked, will this PowerPoint be available to us after the call? I can certainly email that to Lauren or Donna if y'all want to share that. And what kind of organizations can you get involved in at Troy? Lauren or Donna may be able to answer that a little bit better than I could, but certainly when I was there was for business majors you had business fraternities, SGA. I believe there's a Habitat for Humanity on campus. At the Dothan campus, there's a Rotaract Club. And I think if you go to Troy's website, they list all of them. But if Lauren or Donna want to chime in on that, I'm sure they probably have better info on that than I do.
Yeah, I'll try to go over and copy the link real quick and put it here that lists all the organizations. You will kind of have to search through your campus affiliation. So you'll see more on the Troy campus, but there are those that are affiliated with the other campuses too. And I think to Andy's point, he first mentioned something that was in his college, like one related to his major. Those are great. And then if you want to do something related to service, volunteer, then something he mentioned to SGA or just any of those types of organizations that are on campus. So having some different ones are really great. And there's so many that I feel like you can probably find at least one that's affiliated with your major and one that is of interest to you that you could give your time to. I'll see if I can.
And as a sophomore myself, when I was my sophomore year, I joined a business fraternity, and that was a great way to get to know other business majors, and I ended up having classes with a lot of them. So when group projects came up or if we needed to form a study group, it's a lot easier to do that with people you already know versus kind of having to, force yourself to, get to know other people in class. So, again, I know they have, for journalism majors, they have clubs specifically for journalism. So like Lauren said, something related to your college, definitely a good place to start off and get to know people.
Andy, do you have any recommendations from your experience for adult learners or job seekers that are maybe returning to work or, have been in a different field making a transition? What stands out in their resumes or interviews to you?
Really, especially if you're kind of having a complete career change, I think that's where the functional resume would still be helpful, because I would, instead of just kind of listing what your jobs are, you could kind of do a highlight the different skills that you've learned, and use that in your resume instead. Maybe, because a lot of people will, list their job, but not really list, I guess, what they learned, and that can be relevant to the job that they want. So if you've had a pretty broad experience, you can highlight that to show, hey, I'm capable of learning just about anything. I've dabbled in a little bit of everything. So whatever you can throw at me, I can learn it and run with it. All right. Any other questions?
This is really valuable to hear from an employer's perspective. I know if you ever tune into career services, we say a lot of these same things, but he's in the job field seeing this every day. So yeah, that's really, really helpful.
Well, and then that example resume that I put together, I'm more than happy to, if anyone wants to go off of that template, I'm more than happy to send that to you as well if you want to share that, in case anyone needs any help. So, and I can, send you my email address if you want to share that. If anyone maybe thinks of a question later on, you're more than welcome to shoot me an email, and I'll try to help you as best I can.
That'd be great. We'll definitely send your PowerPoint presentation and your contact info to everybody that attended today. And what would you as we're leaving here, what would you recommend students do now as far as the networking piece? Because I know there's a lot of employers that the job market's a little scary because nobody knows what's going on. So what can they be doing now, even though like you guys aren't necessarily hiring today because there's so much uncertainty in the job market? What can they be using this time to do to set themselves up? And there was one more question that came in too after you answer that.
Yeah. To answer that first question, I would just, first things first, come on presentations like these. You can have people's contact information, like my contact information. Networking right now is definitely pretty tough since with all the social distancing, but just kind of, get involved in virtual chats like this and get to know people who are, in the industry and get their contact information. and just kind of use that to, because a lot of the times you're submitting a virtual resume and never really hear from anyone. So if you can have that contact information, at least you have someone who can point you in the right direction. As far as the salary expectation, that one can be kind of tough because sometimes they'll just give you like a one line, sometimes they'll give you a range to put. But I would answer that honestly. What you expect. You can do some research. Salary.com is a good resource. There's several websites out there that can kind of give you an idea of what to look for based on your location. So certainly, you don't want to settle for something lower than what you want, but at the same time, you don't want to ask for too much. So certainly, ask for what you are truly expecting, but then you can also include there that you're, open to negotiation, on that range.
Can I ask you kind of a loaded question? Give your honest response.
Okay.
As a Troy alum, do you feel a little bit more like warm towards Troy students, that you want to help them out a little more than, I know you can't always say that's the truth, but would students, should they reach out to Troy alumni just because of that connection?
Definitely. I mean, especially when I was in HR at Coleman, if we were hiring someone, we did hire someone who got their HR degree from Troy. Going through the HR program at Troy myself, knowing how tough Dr. Findley is, I know if someone comes out of Troy's HR program, they're going to know their stuff. So definitely, in being a Troy alum, I'm kind of partial to Troy. So ultimately you want to hire the best candidate, but the alumni network definitely helps.
Yeah, and we encourage that as you're, especially during this pandemic, and we can't go to Rotary meetings or we can't meet in person. If you're reaching out to people through LinkedIn or just contacts, friends of friends, definitely mentioning that you're a Troy student or alumni if they are, because that's a built-in commonality that you have with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I did forget to mention with the networking piece, if you do get involved, just to kind of show the importance of getting involved on campus or off campus. That's actually how I ended up getting this position. I wasn't even actively looking. I was involved in something here in Dothan, and someone knew someone at LBA and recommended me, and they reached out to me, and now here I am. So had I not been, kind of putting myself out there and going outside my comfort zone, I may not be here. So networking is definitely huge.
Yeah, I think other than not getting discouraged, that might be one of the best takeaways too. But just because we see that's how so many people get jobs. It's not that you're born into some family, it's that you are making your own connections. You're networking with people. You're building your own reputation as a hard worker. So that's how most people get jobs. We're not saying don't sit at home and apply online. You can, and that's good, but it's good to do both. It really needs to be a combo.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have anything else to add? Well, Andy, if you have anything else to send us off with, that'd be great. If not, we really appreciate your time.
No, only other thing I can say is go Troy, and good luck to everyone. And by all means, if you have any questions later on, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to help out, and thank y'all again for having me.
Okay. Thank you so much. And we'll have this video on our YouTube page, and we'll also email out to everyone Andy's information in the PowerPoint. Thank you so much.
Right.
Okay.
All right, y'all have a good afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Andy.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.